My biggest fear in life is being nothing more than unrealized potential. We're all a bunch of people suffering with imposter syndrome, pushing through every single day, making sure that we unmute and use our voice because we don't want to succumb to it.
What do you love most about Clubhouse?
Ooh, okay. So that's a great question. There's a couple things. Number one, I actually genuinely love public speaking. I'm like one of the weirdos. And so Clubhouse gives me an outlet to public speak on a regular basis in front of people who affirm, or maybe don't affirm what I'm saying. And so for me, I love that. Number two, the access to people like yourself. I just got to interview Ashton Kutcher. That's just not normal. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I love most is number one, that I get to be in my genius every single day. And number two, I get to do it with some pretty exceptional human beings, both famous and not famous, both of which have actually added a lot of value to my life.
Well, and I think that's cool. And the reason why I ask is because you and I were able to meet on Clubhouse. You are super, super active. Right? You are growing a massive following. You're very well connected in the social media clubs and the different groups and things like that. And I am not I've been in marketing 15 years, but I'm like a traditional kind of guy. Like the social thing, I'm not good at, I'm not on board with, none of that stuff. And so when I meet people who are like in a position like yours, I can never tell, this is going to sound really disparaging, I can't tell if people are big just in their social bubble or if they're big. And you're both. You're doing really cool things, you're living a big life, you're doing all this stuff with business, and you have a big following. And so I always have to ask, whenever I'm meeting people who are really good at, you talked about this zone of genius, like Clubhouse or TikTok or Instagram or business or any of those things, I see this these different levels. Have you ever bumped up against that where it's oh, you're TikTok famous, oh, but that's not real fame, or whatever that might be?
Yeah. You know what's funny is actually coming into Clubhouse, the very first room I went into, the very first stage I got on, they slid into my Instagram, as you do. And at that point I had 10,000 followers. And I don't think I have that many followers on Instagram. I have 15,000 now. But 3 months ago, I had 10,000. So Clubhouse has actually helped me grow 33%.
I went from 700 to 1,200 followers.
See what I'm saying? Almost double. That's huge, right? That's amazing. And so that, because I had 10,000 followers, is why they pulled me up on stage and why they asked me the question. And then because I could back what they were assuming based on that, that's actually what got me the clout. And I feel like I'm speaking highly about myself, and that's not my intention. What happened was I was in the right place at the right time, and preparation prior to Clubhouse got me the notoriety that I needed when I first entered, and then allowed me to have space on stages that has allowed my Clubhouse following to grow now to almost 12,000 in 3 months. And I've never, my TikTok grew by 10,000, my Instagram by 5,000, my Clubhouse by almost 12. I've never had ever this type of rapid social media growth. And it's all because of Clubhouse, hands down.
So you said the other day, I know there was a big event, a few weeks ago now by the time we release this, but you're able to connect with Ashton Kutcher, and you're able to do all kinds of cool things. I'm having so much fun on Clubhouse because I just get to do what I love to do, which is just talk. and I love it when people listen to me. I mean, boy, doesn't that make us feel good. Besides just talking and people listening to you and giving you love and validation, what else do you get from it?
Such a great question, because it's also giving me the opportunity to really push the things that matter to me. And so the reason I was in that space with, Ashton Kutcher, and I got to interview him or whatever, was because his brother and his twin brother, became friends through this platform, and he has a mission. And I knew that he's new to the platform. I know I'm good at public speaking because I have a following and I made some cool friends. I could help this very important mission, which is increasing the education on organ donating and whatnot. I could use my resources to help push this even further. And that's something that's really important to me. So if someone were to ask me, what's my mission in life? What's my goal on Clubhouse? What's my goal in everything that I go into? Every situation I'm in, I always tell myself this: I'm either coming out with two things. I'm either building relationships or I'm building business. And if I'm really lucky, I'm building both. And so I understand that the way to build relationships sometimes is understanding that if I have something that Mark needs, for example, and I'm happy to give that to you with no expectation of any reciprocity or anything, just truly from the bottom of my heart, giving something that I know that you need. The reality of the matter is, human nature is, you're going to want to give something back when you can. Does that make sense? But only because you understand that I'm not giving it to get something back. And so it's an interesting little dichotomy there, because if people feel that you're doing it because you want something from it, they don't feel like they have to give you anything back. But if people see that you're genuine and it's coming from the bottom of your heart and it's freely given, because what you freely give, you never really lose, then they're happy to actually give back. And Clubhouse has allowed me to operate in that very natural way of being, because my mission in life is to increase the vibration of love, and to do that on Clubhouse. And in turn, by doing that on Clubhouse,
I've heard you say it, because I've been a part of a lot of your rooms. What does that mean?
Okay, I'm so happy that you're asking me this, because this is really like my mission. I love this with all my heart. I want to go into a space and you feel so loved by being in my presence, and me, and not just me, but whoever I'm surrounding myself with, make you feel so loved that the second you walk off this app, not figuratively walk off the app, and you go into the grocery store, you're walking on sunshine, your smile is bright, and you're vibrating love. Then you walk by people and you're like, hey, how are you doing? And then you go cash out and the cashier is asking you questions and you're just vibing love. And now she's vibing love and you leave, right? Then the next person comes up to that cashier and she's like, whoa, Mark just infused me with love. I'm going to infuse the next person with love. And it just keeps spreading, because there's too many times, but what goes viral is negativity. What goes viral is hate. What goes viral is all these negative thoughts about each other. And I want love to go viral. I want acceptance to go viral. I want inclusion to go viral, because to be honest, I lived a life that wasn't full of love of myself or many others. It wasn't full of including others. It was one of exclusivity, and one where I protected myself by telling myself I didn't need people. I was better than people. I could be myself. When the reality, I was just putting up defense mechanisms to shield me from my own self-hatred.
Yeah.
And as
I know you have we're gonna dig into your story. I know you have a really powerful backstory, but sticking on just Clubhouse for a second, sticking on your mission of sharing love. Love is a gift that you can give people by having them be seen and having them be heard and felt validated. The struggle I have on the platform, if I'm being really brutally honest, is there's a lot of bullshit on the platform. There's like a lot of like, great share, oh, I loved it, when you can tell people aren't listening. There's a lot of people who want to be validated and want to be heard when they don't have a message worth sharing yet. It just isn't articulated. It's just not powerful. It's just not there. And so I love the idea of building people up, but at the same time, I love the democratization of everyone having a voice. But surely people are good at this and people aren't good at it. And people who aren't good at it, building, like I was saying this to my wife the other day, we were going for a walk and I was like, there was this one person in one room, you may have been a part of it, who was just dominating the conversation, just jumping in and jumping in and jumping in. And I was like, listen, the first time, the second time, the third time, I'm like, great. But by the 8th or 10th time, I was rolling my eyes. I'm sure everyone was rolling their eyes. And it's just like, so like, I struggle because I'm not really that much of a people person. You know, as a moderator, I am fine cutting people off. I'm fine letting them breathe, but I'm also fine cutting them off and just being like, hey, we need to keep things moving. Because to me, it's like entertainment, it's information. It's like there's a pace, there's a rhythm to things. In this space that we're all figuring out now, in your mission to give love, how have you been able to balance that, like wanting people to be seen and heard with the same time that uncomfortable feeling of watching a train wreck happen in front of you because people are just like oversharing or whatever it is?
That's a great question. So, okay, this kind of comes, so first and foremost, number one, when it comes to, I'm going to give a little quick Clubhouse tutorial, I guess. Number one, when you are hosting a room and it's your room. So when you're the one spot, you created the event, you even put together the model, this is your room. It is your responsibility to set the tone of that room and to create the room's rules and make sure that people are understanding of the room's rules.
But I think this is not just for Clubhouse. I think this is for meetings. I think this is for life, right? Like
100%.
dinner table conversations. Yes. If you're the host, don't let it get away from you, right?
Exactly. Set
small
the expectations.
Group, right. Bible studies, whatever it might be.
Fill in the blank, right? Set that expectation, because I believe that there's freedom within boundaries, right? Mm. Once you know the rules, you can do what you want. And then also you've given me the freedom now that we've socially accepted, we're in a social contract that these are the rules. And now when you break the rules, I can cut in and I do not feel bad. I am known as like a tough love moderator, and I have shut people up, and I have asked people, listen, I'll give you one more chance, but an outburst like that is going to get you removed from the room. And then they outburst again, and it'll be a room on love. And I remove them from the room, because that is love, right? Understanding that when you love someone enough, it's okay. See, love isn't just the squishy feel good. You're amazing. I'm giving you all your flowers, like amazing. No, love is like, yo, let's talk about how you could do that better. Or love is, listen, I hear that you have a story, but you don't know how to get that story out in a way that A, people want to hear it, and B, you're effectively getting your mission across. So let's work on that. You know what I'm saying? And I have offered people, like I've said, I do it kindly. I've done it in that kind way. I've said, like, yo, let's get on a 15-minute phone call. I feel like you have a lot to get out and you're working through how to get it out. Let's you and me get it out together. And then I'll create a space that you can get it out in front of the public. And guess what? They always say yes. No one ever says, no, I want to keep going, because the beauty of Clubhouse is if you do that and you fall outside of the rules that I've clearly stated, I'm booting you out of the room. And I don't feel bad about it, because I am protecting the integrity of everyone in that room. And it's, in my opinion, in Clubhouse specifically, and this is Alexander Gonzalez's opinion, it is all about the greater good. It's not about the individual. I feel like I know exactly what room you were talking in about the gentleman. Was it a gentleman that kept interrupting? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was a unique situation given some of the circumstances. We have
a lot of grace, a lot of for sure.
Grace was given, mm-hmm. and we did back channel with him as some of the leaders of the room, and just kind of said, listen, we are very happy to have you here. I think that that you have a lot to add, but it cannot be done in that manner. Again,
that's the other thing I'm learning is all this back channeling and stuff, as I get more into this. It's so for anyone listening, that's the conversations that usually happen on WhatsApp or an Instagram group for all of the moderators and all the hosts. I used to direct live events. And so I'd be sitting at the back with a headset on, and I used to be in television. So I'd have headsets, or we'd have clear comms, we call them, and we'd be having a ripping conversation usually in the back on the headset, saying like, "Oh, she's up. Oh, she's going long. Okay, go lights. Go mute.
Just like
go. Like screaming at each other and stuff.
We're even like interrupt.
Go,
mute,
go.
Mute.
No. Now's your time. Go.
The social media show, because we do that 5 days a week. I always jokingly say I have never worked in television, and it's definitely not at that scale. But I'm telling you, the way we have Google Docs with schedules. We have people come in to speak things. We have people that we interrupt. People specifically we plan contingencies when someone we know usually goes on kind of sort of derails themselves, how to bring them back in. Like we have these conversations. Yeah, exactly. We have these conversations. And I think that's why that room is consistently successful. And it's because we treat it as something that actually, even though we make no money, I spend 20 hours a week in the social media room. I make $0 for that money, for that time there, but that's okay.
So what are you hoping? Because this is a question I have all the time. I know that I'm on the app a bunch, but I'm on the app actively. So I'm hosting rooms. I'm on the app actively where I'm trying to jump into conversations, but I'm very patient because I'm Canadian. So I'm like, when you call on me, I will speak. And then I'm on the app passively where I'm either just listening in, or quite honestly, like we all do, people are just kind of parking their account while they're off in a meeting or something. And if you see something happening or you hear something, you're like running back to the phone. And I think yesterday or the other day, you threw to me and I had the phone in my pocket. I was outside in the backyard and you're like, Mark, are you here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here. I'm like trying to pull them out of my shorts. I'm like, I'm here. Like, so there's all kinds of different stuff. But how are you? I mean, you can't speak for others, but how is everyone spending so much time on this app? And, and it's the same for IG or for TikTok or for LinkedIn or for any kind of content plan. It's a full-time job. It's a business. How are people are they all just are you independently rich? Is that what you're telling me?
I wish I was.
How's life in Florida?
Yeah, Florida life is pretty good. I could say that I do have a business that, I run my own business and I'm doing that. So I have a little bit more free time. Like this is my home office. This is where I work out of. This is where I Clubhouse out of. And simultaneously while Clubhousing, I am usually doing things either on a Zoom or, building my business. So it's, I don't do it alone. I have a pretty big team worldwide. So that gives me some grace that I can kind of do some things. But
okay, do you feel like you have it figured out? Because,
no.
Okay. Because what I just heard you say actually gave me a little bit of oh man, oh shit.
I do have
I don't
Clubhouse.
have it
Yes, I feel like I have Clubhouse figured out because I have my intention on Clubhouse figured out, and that took me about 6-7 weeks to determine. And once I determine what I'm doing on Clubhouse and what my point is on Clubhouse, and that's why someone like yourself who's been in a room, you can pretty much know what I'm doing because I'm saying it all the time. My goal is to increase the vibration of love and in turn, increase the collective consciousness as it pours out, right? Yeah. I'm branding myself 100. I am branding Alexander Gonzalez, not the fat dad, so that I have an avenue that brings me clients for my business that feeds my family. Yeah. And B, it gives me the clout, the following, etc., so I could build my personal brand to ultimately my goal. So I have a goal to one day have a podcast. In fact, someone sent me a podcast microphone. I got it in the mail today. I have no idea who it's from. So if you happen to watch this, thank you. That I literally just made that determination about a week ago. Okay. I know that I'm going to be on stages throughout the United States. I just got hired for my first public speaking gig and I got 2 after that. Thanks, dude. And that was a lifelong dream that I gave up on. I legit gave up on it. And then the last 4 years, this whole transformation of mind, body, and soul has made me realize that I'm dreaming bigger than ever. And these dreams will come to fruition. And it's not just because I'm dreaming or manifesting or affirming these dreams are going to happen. It's because I'm willing to do the hard work that it's going to take to make them happen. And I've dedicated myself into my personal brand like never before. And Clubhouse has given me a wonderful outlet to build that personal brand. I mean, when people know your name, when, Tori Spelling, you get to interview Tori Spelling and then she follows you and then she affirms you and then she DMs you not that Tori Spelling's the biggest name on the world or anything, but she's a great human being who's had a very charmed life and can be anywhere else than Clubhouse. And she was there affirming, that's powerful to me. And so, yeah, my intention is very clear when I go in. And I say that all the time. I'm here to build business or build relationships. And if I'm lucky, both. And I'm doing all of that through love and by ultimately building my own brand. Yeah. So the other day we were running, me and my friend Evan, we were doing some tests in Clubhouse and Jesse Eitzler came in. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is the husband. Okay. He's the husband of Sarah Blakely. He popped into the room. He came up on stage, and then he started following me, and I was like, "What?" Now I don't know if it's Jesse or his team or whatnot. Sure. And then a few days later, I was like, "Oh, he's not following me anymore." He did the follow unfollow, and then I looked, and I was like, "Oh no, he's still following me." I'm like, "Yay!" That's so funny. I understand these little wins, but you just really actually helped. See, you're such a pro. You helped transition this already so well because you just said, 4 years, for the last 4 years, you've been doing this stuff. So let's talk about this transition point. If I had met you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20, as a kid, who were you? What were you working through? And because we've just heard a bunch of shiny, awesome stuff that you're doing that I'm impressed with, that people should be impressed with. But we don't start this way. And my mission, if I can spend a second talking about it, is I want to show those of us who have fear, who have doubt, no matter where you are in your journey, that what you are doing right now is still too small for you. Big is actually bigger
than you can even dream or think about, which is why we have to do hard things. So I love these transitions. I love these life stories. So who would I have met 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? Who were you?
Yeah. So if you fast forward to like as a child, I'm like literally born like I won the family lottery, like hands down. I have the most amazing, loving, supportive parents. My brother and my sister are two of my absolute best friends, and we are super, super close. And our whole entire life was really a beautiful life.
Did you grow up in Florida?
I grew up in Florida in suburbs of Orlando, and went to the private school. Like I lived a really great life. What a lot of people, 99.9% of people didn't know was that from the ages of 5 to 8, I was sexually abused by a family member, not in my immediate family, but in my extended family. My parents didn't actually ever find that out until around the age of 13, when that really started showing, kind of rearing its ugly head in the form of depression and kind of some self-hatred, because it really affected me. So trigger warning, obviously, missed saying that, but that's my truth. And it was something I was not able to talk about for the majority of my life. In fact, that conversation with my parents, when my parents were like, oh my gosh, freaking out. And they were saying, what do we do? How do we want to move forward? Let's go to the police, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to. Like I wanted it to go away, but I didn't know how to make it go away. And so I went through therapy for the first time at that point in my child, as a 13-year-old boy.
What does that do? Help me understand if it's not, if you're comfortable with it, help me understand what that does to someone, at the age of 11. So it's done at the age of 12, at the age of 13, you have this tipping point. I mean, you're carrying this weight, you're carrying this trauma. You're like, what does this do to a boy?
And especially a boy, and I was molested by a man. It was a man in my family. And so what was confusing really about all of that was there's pleasure to your abuse, right? There's pleasure to the nature of what's happening. It's sexual in nature. And as you're a boy that's growing, your body reacts. And my abuser would tell me, see, your body's reacting. That means you like it. This is your fault. You do this to me. If it wasn't for you, blah, blah, blah. And I would be in a paralysis. Like I was not, just to clarify, I was not raped. I was molested. I was touched in places I shouldn't be touched with his hands. And I'm grateful that it didn't go further than that, because I don't know how I would have handled that trauma, but it became a lot of self-hatred. I was afraid that if I told anyone that he would, like he said, he would kill me and my parents. This was someone that was a family member who I loved. This family member is not really active in my family anymore, but still alive. And so I really hated myself, because what happened was at 13 is I started believing his lies. I started believing that it was my fault. I started believing that I caused this pain to myself, and that this self-hatred was I was worthy of this self-hatred. And also it put me into a place where all I wanted was to be liked and loved. And so I would do anything I could in my power to be popular, to be liked, to make people think I was funny, to be the teacher's favorite and the student's favorite. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so as I went into high school, I was adamant that I needed to be popular. I had to be on homecoming court. I had to be on prom court. And if that meant that I had to step on people's toes to kind of get there, I was willing to do that, because I hated myself so much that I felt that if I could look as if I was in the in crowd, if I could be in that crowd, then people would not see all the that I see. Does that make sense? I felt like I could deflect them. Like, look at Alex, his life's perfect, everything's good. And really that perfection was all a farce. It was all me attempting to tell myself that I was worthy, but really never, ever believing it. And so there was confusion, there was self-hatred, there was, as I got a little bit older, starting around 16, very unsafe sexual practices, where I just became almost like, anyways, I stopped caring about myself, my body, my life. I was an abuser of drugs at an early age and abused for a very, very long time, alcohol as well. And I was just doing everything I could to self-medicate, because when I'd go in front of the therapist, I was very intelligent. I would play the role. I would say what I thought they wanted to hear. I would answer the questions with tears in my eyes, and then walk out rolling my eyes like, got him again, like, here we go. And never actually facing the man in the mirror. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago that I finally decided to face the man in the mirror. And the man from 13 to 35, obviously a lot of time had happened. So you would have thought me a happy-go-lucky, funny person. The first person I ever did was make fun of myself, though. And every room I'd come in, I'd deprecate me, because if I deprecated me before you could, then I felt like I had the power. And now I'm a man that you'll very rarely ever hear me deprecate me. And all I do is talk about how much I love me because of that transformation that I went through.
How long have you been married for?
14 years. Going on.
And so did you hide this from your wife, or did she see the true you?
My wife knew all of it.
No, I know about the past. I'm sorry. Imagine about the past and stuff, but you're talking about from 13 to 35. So you're 38, 39 now. So there was a good 10 years in there of the man she married, the man she fell in love with, the man she dated.
She knew. She saw my depression. In fact, there was one day where I laid in bed for 2 days straight with the sheets over my head. And my son was about to be born, and my daughter was 3.5 at the time, because he was right before. And I'm gonna use a curse word, but that's okay. She literally pulled the sheets from over my head, and she says, "I don't know what you're going through, but you better shape up or ship out, because me and the kids aren't going to sit around for this." And I needed that tough love. Because that was right during the time that this transformation was, right around the time that I needed to. But she, for 10 years, gave me grace. Because
she loves you, and she's committed, and you guys are a Christian home and all of that stuff.
Sure.
But there's my wife turns, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, I was working through something, and my wife turned to me one day and she's like, "You better get your shit together, Mark."
Yeah.
And that was it. It was like, I was like, heard, check.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was. I think that for me, my wife, if I'm honest, and she's going to listen to this, so she may or may not agree, but I think she's always seen my greatness, even when I couldn't see my greatness. I think that she knew, my wife knew that I would change the world. She's always told me. And so she stuck around because she knew that it was going to be worth it, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Are you afraid? I know when I think about this, I have 4 kids ranging from, almost 15 to, my little one, 7. And so I speak super honestly and super vulnerably, and I rarely think about, and maybe it's selfish actually. I rarely think about what my kids will think of me if they see this stuff, because I'm just being honest. I sometimes think about what my grandkids will think when they're just like, "Wow, Opa or Grandpa or whatever was out there." Do you worry at all about how your kids see you as they're growing up, what they might hear, how they might come back to a podcast like this or a recording like this and go like, "That's not stuff that we should be talking about out loud," right?
Right. I'm a big believer that if you take what's in the darkness and bring it into the light, it no longer has power over you. And so for the longest amount of time, my story, my history, what happened to me had power over me, defined who I was, and I was embarrassed to share it. And in fact, when I finally shared it publicly for the first time, I was on stage with Mel Robbins. I looked over at my wife before I said anything. Mel Robbins asked me a question, and I look over at my wife almost like for permission, because I felt like, "Are you going to be embarrassed that this is my truth?" I really thought she would be embarrassed. And my wife just kind of nodded, what I felt she transmitted to me, husband and wives, I feel like we can kind of, telepathically speak, was kind of like, it's your story. If you want to tell it, tell it. If you don't want to, don't tell it. And I had just gone on this whole rampage of wanting to work through this and telling myself I was working through it. And I manifested Mel Robbins pulling me on stage to work through something, but I didn't ever know what that something was, because I never thought that was something that was ever going to be worked through. And then I'm on stage and she's asking me questions and I'm dancing around the questions, but she's too good. And she literally turns her back to the audience, puts both hands on my shoulders and says, "Are you a victim of sexual abuse?" And I'm like, oh my God, she called it out. She knew. And I had a choice. I was either going to be honest and bring it to the light, or I was going to lie and keep it in the darkness and keep it affecting me. I almost didn't have kids. My wife and I got married with the understanding that I didn't want kids because I didn't want to bring children into this world. And that potentially happened to me. And I was so crippled with that fear. We were together 10 years, married for 7 years before our first child was born. And it was the very first month we decided to, actually go for it. Yeah, exactly. Try. And I was like, first time, boom, we were pregnant. So I was like, well, it's been 10 years and there's just, maybe we're not actually, but we never actually officially tried. First month we officially tried, we were pregnant. With my son, first month we tried, we were pregnant. And I know that that's not the truth for everybody. And so I'm not trying to be insensitive about that, but that was my truth. But I think that God did that because he knew that I might chicken out if it took too much, because I really was afraid to bring kids into this world that I deemed unsafe. Because,
what else are you afraid of?
My biggest fear in life is being nothing more than unrealized potential.
Oh my goodness, that is so painful.
And I know that I have been given a lot. I know that God's blessed me with a lot. And yet, will I fall short, or will I give everything that he's given to me and use it to the best of my abilities?
That scares the shit out of me. Like,
yeah,
honestly, like I look back and I know how much I've grown over the last 2 or 3 years. I know how much I've grown over the last 10 years. I know that the future, I'm going to grow even more. Mm-hmm. But the thought of falling short of my high hopes that I have for myself, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like the hair, can you see the hair standing up on my arm? Like I'm getting goosebumps right now. The thought of, I'm 38 and I feel like I've made a lot of progress over the last few years, but I honestly feel like I wasted some of my 20s. I wasted some of my 30s. Being 45, being 55, being 65, and cycling through the same stuff that's holding me back and like not growing and not hitting some of the things that I want to hit. I'm fine realizing that the things I want aren't important and shifting, but I'm worried that I'm just going to cycle, flirt with greatness, never really hit it, never put in the time, never put in the work, get distracted. And I'm going to look back and be like, boy, that was a lot of wasted time, energy, effort.
Like, it's my biggest
I haven't heard
fear.
anyone articulate it the way you have, because when you said it, it's just like you've put some thought into this. Like you say it better than I do. That's a huge fear I have too.
And the reason I think that I understand that fear is because I do everything I can to not succumb to it. And so I name my fear. I know what you are. I know what you're trying to stop me from doing. I understand, because listen, what I have a tendency to do, and I'm going to rephrase that. In the past, what I used to have a tendency to do was self-sabotage. I would flirt with greatness. It would come. It was happening. Everything. I mean, I was walking on sunshine. You know, when like you're in state and you're manifesting, it's like, whoa, it's all just coming to me. And then that little story in my head that loops and tells me I'm not worthy. You're not going to do this. You're a joke. No one would ever put you on video behind cam. I mean, I have the stories that I tell myself are unfortunately too long. And then I'd self-sabotage myself from that next level of greatness. And then I'd pick myself up, start from scratch, and go, and then flirt, and then be in the same spot. What Clubhouse, kind of to bring it back to the beginning, Clubhouse has brought that even so much more to the forefront of my attention, because I've been given opportunities that I've never been given before in my life and have almost ruined them and caught myself. Because of my own self-doubt, because of my own, this bullshit of imposter syndrome that we all fight with. But I never even heard it called anything until Clubhouse. And now I hear imposter syndrome more, and I have a master's in psychology. You know what I'm saying? Like I've never, ever heard it used so much since Clubhouse. And it's because I think that we're all a bunch of people suffering with imposter syndrome, pushing through every single day, making sure that we unmute and use our voice, because we don't want to succumb to it. We won't succumb to it. And for the first time, I'm surrounded by people that won't let me succumb to it. The second they see I've not been on Clubhouse, they're messaging me. Because listen, I'll tell you, you can tell with me, I'll let you, everyone, a little secret. Watch my social media. When I'm posting regularly and everything's good and I'm out with my family, I'm vibing high. When you see that a few days go by and I haven't posted a story, I haven't put up a reel, I haven't put anything, I'm probably in my feels and I'm working through some things. Every single day, I work through something. Every single week, I climb a mountain. unfortunately. That's my truth. That's my reality. But I'm willing to do the hard things because I understand that this isn't about me anymore. It's not just even about the lives that are going to be changed, because I do believe I'm a catalyst for change. It's about my children's lives, their children's lives, their children's lives. You see, an inheritance is what you leave your kids after you're gone. A legacy is what you leave your family and generations to come forever. And I want people to be like, 70, 80, 90, 100 years from now saying, oh, Granddad Alex, he was Alexander the Great, not because he stepped into his greatness, but because he helped everyone around him step into theirs. And that's what I want. That's what I want on my tombstone. I mean, literally, I want everyone to leave me say, "Ooh, he made me feel so good. Ooh, he magnified something in me. Ooh, he pulled it out of me." You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. Sorry, but I'm driven by that.
I think people tend to fall onto the cynical side or the optimistic side by nature, and we have all of it. So I can be in a conversation like this, or I can be in one of your rooms, or I can have people in my rooms. And when you're in flow, and when you're having fun, and when it's entertaining, and there's like a little rat-a-tat-tat, a little dance happening, it's just like, let's go. Like I am great at this. Like this is amazing. And then, so here's something I haven't shared publicly. I'm watching Becoming, right? The Obama, Michelle Obama documentary about her book. There's this little moment in Becoming, right towards the beginning, where her and her staff are reviewing who is going to interview her in all the cities she goes to. So there's Oprah in Chicago, of course, that's where the documentary starts, but they're going through like all these different people. And deep down inside, I literally had this moment where I was like, I should be doing that. Like my name should be on that list.
I literally thought that it was going to be. I thought that I was like, oh my God, I was going to watch the documentary. I was like, and then she says my name on the documentary.
In front of 14,000 people, I'm interviewing Michelle Obama. No, but I had this moment where I was like, I should be one of those hosts. And there's a lot of amazing, remarkable people. There's Colbert, and there's just all kinds of people. And I was like, I should be one of those hosts. Like, give me some time and I will be there. Give me some time and I'll be there. And then the other side of me is all like, what are you talking about, Mark? There are a billion people. And yeah, you might be good, but lots of people are good. And skill isn't enough. And you got to get and that's the thing where it's like, ooh, I'm getting uncomfortable now. I shouldn't even be saying this out loud. But the truth is, we all have these sides of us. This imposter syndrome you're talking about isn't only imposter syndrome. There's also some truth to 100%. How hard this is and how difficult it is and how lucky you have to be. So how do we hold in our hands on one side the belief and the conviction that if you pursue it with everything you have, life will give you the most remarkable things, not maybe how you want, maybe not when you want, but it will, and be open to it. And at the same time, this cynical truth that most people will say, Alexander, who the hell are you to think that you can do this? Mark, so you run a podcast or a show. What are you talking? And it's just like, just watch me. So like, sometimes I'm like, just watch me, I'm going to do it. But then at night, I'm there thinking, during the days where I'm all alone, I'm thinking like, I don't know if greatness is enough. And I don't even know if I'm great. How do you balance those things?
I love this question because I think that both sides are right. I think that greatness isn't enough. And I also think that you are great and you will do it. And so I think it's funny because I think it takes both sides. And let me explain myself a little bit more. So first and foremost, you have that desire, that almost childlike dream of, I'm going to be on the list of next time Michelle Obama's doing a book tour, I'm going to be on that list. And listen, Mark, I believe it hands down. I'm manifesting that for you. I'm affirming it for you. Right. And then that other side that says you're not good enough, you're not going to make it. Why would your name be on that list? That's also true. Right. And what that side now does is it gives you the fuel in the fire to not let yourself be mediocre and stop, because the mark today isn't the mark that's going to get Michelle Obama on. You're not going to be on Michelle Obama's list. Mm-hmm. Right. So this side's telling you that. This side's telling you that you can. And now you got to do the hard work. And I believe this. You may have heard me say this quote, that affirmations without discipline is the onset of delusion, but affirmations with discipline creates miracles. Right. So it's not just believing that you can. Mark, you will. I believe it's already done. Whether it's Obama or it's someone else, I genuinely believe that you've already had some big names. I am like, when I was going through the list of your podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, Alex, you are so presumptuous, because you guys don't even know. I basically invited myself to this podcast. And then I see the list and I'm like, Alex, what are you thinking? And I'm like, you know what? I am that person. I am among that list. Even though inside I tell myself I'm not, I am. And you know what? I'm going to work as hard as I can. So when that day shows up that I am on Mark Drager's podcast, today, I'm going to knock it out the park and I'm going to bring my best, but I got to do the work. I got to be willing to do what's hard before then in order to when that moment comes. Because like you said, it takes a little bit of luck, but what's that saying? That it's when preparation meets opportunity. If you're not preparing, doesn't matter all the luck in the world. If it falls on your lap and you're not ready to accept it, nothing's going to happen.
So for you and me, you talked about spending a few days in bed with the sheets pulled up. If you're posting on social, you're top of the world. If you're gone a little dark, you're working through some things, which means you're down. I have those things too. For me, it's a bit opposite actually. When I'm down, I can share. When I'm up, I got nothing to talk about. I'm not going to step up and brag or be like, I got life figured. So if you see me posting a lot, it's usually actually because I'm working through something. Oh. And if I'm not posting, it's because it's just like, I'm fine. I don't need social therapy. I'm good. I can work through it. But, you have these ups and these downs. Is it unrealistic for me and for you and for everyone else listening to just what I'm working for is to not be down, right? Mm. Because the down doesn't fuel me. The down makes me feel hopeless. And so for those of us who get that way, if we were more aggressive, if I was Tom Bilyeu or maybe someone else, they talk about that down. They talk about those doubters or those haters. And it's just like, I'm going to crush you, watch kind of thing. I can get there sometimes, but most of the time, it just makes me feel actually a little hopeless. And when you're hopeless, right, what's the point? What's the point? And then you get, apathetic and all. So how do we hold those two things? If I know the answer is affirmations, I know it's believing, I know it's manifesting, I know it's running as fast as you can in the direction you need to run to make it real and make it happen. But there's that but.
Yeah. I love this question, Mark. You're really good. I have to tell you, you're really good because you're pulling out some good stuff. I like these questions. So someone said, and I feel really bad that I cannot quote them. This is not my words. And I cannot remember who was that said
I'll be your research assistant. Give it to me and I'll find it.
And they basically said that you don't hit rock bottom, you hit rock foundation. And whatever foundation you have built is when things happen and you have those lows in your life, that's where you'll drop to. So your job is in between the bottoms, if you will, when you hit rock foundation, that you're building your foundation stronger and stronger and higher and higher and higher. So yeah, are those bad days going to ever fully go away? Probably not, because everyone has, even the people who are living in the highest vibration of state, have days that like Tony Robbins talks about putting yourself in state. If you're always in state, you don't have to put yourself in state. So he clearly has moments when he's in state and he has moments when he's not in state. So we have all that. But Tony Robbins' foundation is here. So when he gets in state and he starts to, he starts his things, he's already there. Like he's
Make
there.
Make your move.
Yeah, exactly. He's there in 2 seconds. Whereas someone like me, and I don't know you in this realm, we may have to do a little bit more work to get there. But in between those lows, are we solidifying our foundation to a new high? So when those lows hit, we don't drop down as below. So, I lost 84 pounds. I did this whole physical transformation. I've lost weight a bunch before. It's not I've struggled my whole adult life yo-yoing. I've been on the Oprah diet, if you will, for the last, since I was 20 years old, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. It wasn't until I decided that I had to transform my mind, body, and soul. It couldn't just be the diet and exercise, because that I saw worked, but didn't sustain. I needed something that was going to sustain. And so what I realized is I had to do the work inside as well, do the self-development, read the books, listen to the podcasts, surround myself. This is the most vital transformation I did. I surround myself now with the healthiest, wealthiest people I know. And that is who I'm with every weekend. That's where my kids are with their kids. And I am literally I am in my friend group, the least fit, both physically and financially. They don't make me feel that way. They don't make me feel less than, but guess what? Every day I'm closer to them. Every day I'm investing the same things that they're investing. Every day when we have our group message and they're throwing the X amount of money towards something that's just whatever, whatever. At the beginning, I couldn't do it. I watched, I listened, I saved my little bit of pennies. And when the time came that I could, I would. Now, when they say, we're going here, I'm going there. Does that make sense? Because I was willing to do the work and surround myself with the people that make me want to keep doing the work and don't make me feel lesser than for not being where they're at, but seeing where I'm at, honoring where I'm at, and helping me get higher because they see my greatness. And that to me has been everything.
So let me just credit. So that you don't hit rock bottom, you hit rock foundation was Dan Clark.
Yes, it was.
So let's make sure Mr. Dan Clark gets referenced for that. But this is so interesting because you've just touched on like the idea of tasting. So like, my friend in my story, I lost a lot of weight as well. Most people listening probably know my story, but my friend Evan Carmichael, I got really depressed a few years ago. I told him about it. And by the way, if you're working through something, just tell a friend. Like it's the easiest advice in the world, but it might be hard to do, but just tell a friend. Who cares? So he invites me a few months later to Tony Robbins. He flies me down. So I've never flown business class before, so we fly down to New York business class. Now he said, I'll take care of the flights. You take care of the hotel. And his wife booked the hotel. And she's like, where do you want to book? And I was like, I don't care. I'll sleep anywhere. Anyway, she got an Airbnb in Newark, in like the worst part of Newark ever. So I was like, maybe next time I'll book. But we're down there and we're staying in CIS, which is the invite only section of the stadium. So 14,000 people in the stadium. We're in the invite only section. So we're sitting in the very front row. We're sitting, I'm working through these exercises. Like literally, I don't like to say the people's names because I don't want to call people out, but literally, think of an Olympic American gold medalist snowboarder. And I'm working through like really big stuff with this person and someone else who is amazing at this. Like we're doing these role plays and he's amazing. And I was like, you're really good at this. What do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm an actor. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then later I look him up and I was like, what? Like Netflix shows, working with all, I'm like, holy smokes. And so like, yeah, we talk imposter syndrome. I'm getting a little bit of that, but we have access to the platinum lounge, right? The people who spend $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year to be part of Tony Robbins's group. And I have access to that. So I'm there like in my jeans, in my hoodie, just chilling because I'm going away for a few days to New York. I'm told to dress warm. I don't know what's happening. And what I realized is when I was sitting there, not only was I comfortable in this group, not only was I capable of having a conversation and fitting in, but they didn't know that I didn't have their wealth. They didn't know that I didn't have their background. They didn't know any of those things because I'm sitting there. So I must be part of that club or that group. And so this was interesting to me because one, it was the first time where I was like, I feel like I should be here. Like, I feel like I'm good at this level. This is the level I should be. And the second thing is like, I'm certainly not financially ready to be there yet. So every few months I think about that gap and how to surround myself more with those people, not just to taste it, but to also like, I'm listening to these conversations and the conversations they're having, everyone is just like, this is the way the world works. And they have like a mindset or a worldview where it's like, oh, you do the like, so most of my roadblocks, if I had said them out loud, they would have been like, I don't understand, Mark, just do X and do Y and do Z, and then it'll work out or it won't, like move on. Like, and so like, I'm holding on to like this framework or this family of origin or this idea of how the world works or should be or is.
Right.
And I'm now in a group of other people who see it completely differently. And the only way for me to really program myself to think more like them is to spend time with them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so if we're circling big picture around a Clubhouse, I've been on the app since February 8th, but I am amazed at the people I've been able, like you, but others as well, the people I've been able to connect with, because the way they think is either crazy. I'm going to give the whole Jesus line, right? Like Jesus was either speaking the truth, he was crazy, or he was a liar. I mean, that's what people say. Now, There's probably room for other interpretation, but the people I'm spending time with on Clubhouse, they're either crazy, they're hypocrites and lying, and they're just fronting all the time, or there has to be some truth to some of this, because there's enough people, enough stories, enough examples that there has to be some truth to this, right?
I'll tell you this. First and foremost, I want to touch on a couple points. Number one, I have had the pleasure of meeting 10 or 12 people from Clubhouse in real life, and then another couple dozen via Zoom and other things, right? And no one yet has proven to me that they aren't who they are. And in most cases, they're an amplified version in real life. And actually their Clubhouse is muting the power. And you're one of those people. I think you are way more amplified in real life. I always thought you were cool. That's why we always pull you up on our stages. But now getting to Zoom with you, you're way cooler than I ever thought. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, like genuinely. And so there's that. And then kind of touching upon something I really like that you were saying about with the Tony Robbins event, you're in that section. You didn't go up to them and were like, oh my gosh, I'm not as wealthy as you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm not as known as you guys. Have you ever been in a situation where someone, even on Clubhouse, well, I'm not one of these moderators here. I'm not in the cool club, or I don't have as much money as you guys, or one day I'll live the life that you live. And you say this, it's almost inappropriate because the reality is assimilate, right? Be amongst the people that are living the life that you're hoping to one day live. And then don't point out the differences. Notice the similarities and notice that if they can do it, you sure as hell can do it. Right. And, that's one of the things that I love of the story. You were, oh my gosh, this is a Netflix person, but you didn't shy away from it. You did it with him. You literally ran lines, because that's ultimately what, when you're role playing, you're kind of like running lines with a famous actor, and you held your own. And that's powerful. And 100%, the people that I've come in contact with on Clubhouse, today, John Assaraf, I was on the stage with him. Like, that's bananas. Like, that's John flippin' Assaraf, Grant Cardone. These are some big names that we've read the books. And then you meet them and you hear the voice and you realize, oh my gosh, they actually are just exactly who you think that they are, if not a better version of themselves. And when the people do show their true colors and they are those liars, those hypocrites, etc., the beauty of life, especially on Clubhouse, is you can throw them deuces and leave quietly. and that's the truth. Like, you don't have to create a stink. You don't have to make someone feel bad about themselves. You don't even have to call people out. I don't vibe with that. Like, people hate certain people on the app and they are so vocal about it. And that to me is like, gosh, I'd rather spend my time talking about the people that I love on the app. Like, let's talk about the people that are doing good things, because you give wings to that negativity by focusing on it. And so, yes, do the work, do the self-development that it takes. Find the people that you want to be where they're at and figure out how you can surround yourself with them, And then secondly, when you're talking about tasting, I'm going to give you a quick way to taste and get it quicker. Ready? Don't taste alone. Take your kids, because your kids will never stop talking about it. When are we going to get a boat, Daddy? When are we going to get a couple?
The other day, we jumped on a call Sunday and you're like, yeah, I'm going to spend the afternoon on the boat. And literally I had this ping of like, I don't have a boat. Now, I know I live in Canada. It may not make sense for me to have a boat with our winters and everything.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I was like, oh man, I got to keep up with this Alex.
And listen, this is the cool thing is, like, my kids say their affirmations every single night, and they pick their own affirmations that they're going to say. My daughter's affirmations, she's been saying them since she was 3 years old. She's almost 8. So 3.5 to 8. So I know them by heart. She says every single night, oh my gosh, of course I said, she goes, I will have a house with a pool. I will have dogs. I will have horses. I will try my best to never give up. I'm sweet, kind, brave, loving, and passionate. Every single night she says that. And then afterwards I say, affirmations without hard work or what? And her response is just words, right? Both my kids, we go through this after our prayers. We say our affirmations. They tell me everything they want. And then I tell them it's just words unless they work hard for it, right? Well, guess what? It's just words at 7 and 4 unless mom and dad work hard for it. So as they go to bed, I leave their rooms with a new energized fire to make all those things come true. My daughter's dream dog, which we now have, is a $3,500 miniature husky. It's called an Alaskan Klekai. Not only is it expensive, it's a very rare breed. It had to get shipped in from like another state. Okay. I was like looking for breeders. It was a 2-year waiting list. So like 8 months ago, I got on these waiting lists because I'm like,
does she value this dog more because of it?
Exactly. Well, and she knows all this. I explained to her it's a very expensive dog. I let her go through the whole process of what we're doing. She kept affirming. And she goes, you know what, Daddy? I believe that I'm going to have that dog and it's not going to be so hard for us to get it. Okay. I'm like, hey girl, well, I'm telling you this is how it goes, but whatever. She believes so hard. Every single night she kept saying it. Well, I joined all these, Facebook groups about the Alaskan Cleek High and looking for people. Long story short, a family that lives an hour and a half away from us had 5 dogs. This was the 5th dog that they choose to bring into the home. They love this dog. It's already house trained, already completely trained. They even did the trick training where they like run through tunnels and all this. And their life is just too busy. They are doctors and they just started a new practice. They need to place this dog because this dog needs more love and attention. And I told the story that my daughter gives affirmations in this group, and she goes, so we've chosen you guys. So instead of whatever was $750, because she's like, I did pay last year $3,500, but I feel like I can filter out good homes by charging something. So instead of $3,500, which this dog was paid for, and months of training, months of potty training, etc., my daughter manifested a dog that came into her house already perfectly trained, already all her shots, everything that she needs, everything my daughter desired. Because she affirmed every single day, and then every single morning she'd wake up, go to school, and bust her tail. She's in gifted. She gets straight A's, has never gotten less than a straight A. Because I always say to my kids, you have 2 forms of currency: your grades and your good grades and your good attitude. That's how mom and dad are going to be willing to give you the world. But if you don't have that currency, then you have nothing to show for it. You're not going to be able to get anything. So she wakes up and does her hard work. I wake up and do my hard work, and her dog came manifested to us. Well, guess what? Now both of them manifest more than they ever have. They believe in manifestation like never before. And they understand, more importantly, that they got to do the hard work in order to make it come to fruition.
Okay. So explain to me why this isn't all just woo-woo.
Oh, because it works, number one. And because it's only woo-woo if you sit there and dream it and think it and don't actually work to get it. Because at the end of the day, that the law of attraction goes hand in hand with the law of action. I can sit here all day long and say to you, I'm going to be a public speaker. I'm going to have stages bigger than Tony Robbins had. I'm going to have a reach where 1 billion lives are touched, either directly or indirectly, because of the work that I do. And if I sit back and say that all day long, nothing will ever happen. But if I get up every single day and do the hard work, do what it takes, make the connections, even when I'm not feeling great, getting on the podcast, even if the podcast have 100 downloads a month, I don't care. I'm not saying that about this podcast. I'm saying I've been on tiny podcasts. Why? Because every single time I'm learning how to answer questions, how to engage the audience, how to interact with someone else. I'm learning from you how to be a better interviewer. And I love interviewing. I think that's one of my superpowers. But as I'm hearing you do it, I'm watching your setup, everything you have behind you. I want to be where you are, right? I want to have a successful podcast. So I'm here as your guest, taking notes and learning the whole time. I'm not physically taking notes, but you understand what I'm saying? Mentally just noting everything. Like your vibe, the yellow wall, the wall with the trophies, the think big, be bold, say yes, but that's a little bit fuzzy. I'm like, I'm loving the aesthetic. I'm like, this is dope, right? So this is what I do. It's only woo-woo if all you do is sit back and talk about it. It's not woo-woo if you talk about it and then work like hell to make it happen.
I love it, man. Okay, so I want to close. I could talk to you all day, which is why we had spent so much time on Clubhouse. Okay, for you, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what?
At the end of the day, it all comes down to legacy. For me.
Legacy. Okay, explain. Because we've talked on love, we've talked on manifestation, we've talked about, some hard things that you've worked through, of course.
Right.
But legacy.
Yeah. So legacy to me, and the greatest legacy that you can leave is one of love. But legacy is what you leave after you're gone, right? What is it that people are remembering you by? When you walk into a room, and I don't mean after you're gone here on earth. I do mean that as well. But I mean after your presence is gone. What's been left behind? Are you in a room full of people and you walk in and you're noticed because your energy, people are like, ooh, who's this? People turn around, they notice you and you start chit-chatting and they hear your laughter. They see your joy. They see the love that you give freely and they see how freely you are loved. So that when you leave the room, people literally say, who is that dude? Who is that chick? Wow, she left an impression on me and I didn't even talk to them. Right? That's legacy, is when you've left a room or you've left this earth and people are left with the impression that you've left on them. Is that impression of one that's love and kindness and joy? Or is that, gosh, I couldn't wait for them to leave? And for me, I always want people to say, I always want every podcast to end. I always want every phone call to end with, gosh, I wish we had a little bit more time. I could talk to you a little bit longer. I want to spend more time with you, because you leave that impression, and that's the legacy that you leave behind.
Wow. That's remarkable, because I literally just said I could talk to you all day and I wish I could. And I will also say, again, I have that cynical side of me. You're real, man. You're real, because when I first got to know you, when I first jumped on the app, and I still struggle with this, like I questioned earlier, I can't tell when people are on or not on, because I see in myself, and we project, like we all project, we all see in others what we have in ourselves. I see how much I shift. Like if I'm on a Sunday morning room with a bunch of soft-spoken, caring women, I will fall into that. Like I'll fall into that cadence. I'll fall into that. If I'm in the UK early morning rooms, then suddenly I'm now Mr. Business Guy. And if I'm here, I'm here. And if I'm there, I'm there. And so I don't even like that about myself. Like when people are like, just be you, you are enough. I always have to say, like, well, what version of me? Because I want to serve the room and the audience so badly that I am willing to change in the name of story or entertainment, right? Like I am willing to show up with whomever I need to be to serve the moment for others. Acts of service, love language. Words of affirmation, love language. So you put those together, and if you came on really hot and aggressive and started swearing all the time, then I start swearing all the time. And if I'm in a setting where I know that there's a lot of Christians, I start to talk about my Christian past. Right. If not, then I talk about the universe. Like I feel so, it's just like, but you're a real guy. You're a real guy. This is you.
I appreciate you so much. That's the best. So I'm a pastor's kid. So I grew up in the church.
Oh, you're a PK.
I'm a PK. And I used to go to these PK retreats. And the number one thing that they would complain about is that my dad, and that time it was primarily men that were pastors. So everyone was their dad. My dad is one person behind the pulpit and another person at home. And I never had that. I had a dad who was exactly who you saw behind the pulpit, was the dad that I grew up with. When I say I won the lottery on family, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I have two of the most incredible parents. They failed. They've made mistakes, and they have not had a perfect life, marriage, or anything. But they were open with their failures, and they also were open with the rise back to the top. Does that make sense? My mom and dad at one point when I was 12 years old almost lost everything. My dad made a mistake, and their marriage is almost ruined, and he was not allowed to be a pastor at that church anymore. And what felt like the whole world was going to crumble around us because we were all of a sudden tainted. My parents never let us feel tainted. They let us realize that it's okay to fail. You dust off your knees. You ask for forgiveness. You repent and truly don't do that again. And then you move forward. You put one foot in front of the other, and God will ultimately restore everything that you ever hoped and dreamed. And so I saw that. So I let my kids see me fail. I let my kids see me go out and try something on the trampoline and make a fool of myself and laugh at myself and laugh with me, and then try it again and again and again, because I understand, again, I'm leaving a legacy. What they're seeing me do is the behavior that they're going to emulate. What they hear me say is the behavior they're going to emulate. I get letters from my daughter's teachers all the time. Your daughter is such a I'm going to read this to you, because this is one of the greatest things. And this is like every other week I'll get something from one of the teachers, because we have this app, and like, it's like the best thing you can ever hear from a teacher. And this is her gifted teacher. She said, P.S. We were texting back and forth. I don't think I tell you enough how much your daughter brightens up my Fridays, because my daughter goes to gifted on Fridays. Every single time I see her, she is a pleasure to teach. And it's the one student I look forward to every week. And I'm like, yes, I'm doing it right. She's getting straight A's. I believe that. She's going to do the work. But is she doing the work and showing up in a way that leaves an impression on those around her, that they are better because she's there? They're happier because she's there. My son's the same way. I know that from the bottom of my heart. So when you're saying these things to me, you're giving me the greatest compliment I could ever be given, because I saw my dad be the man that he was behind the pulpit, and I honored that. And I said, I'll always be that man. And so today I get to not be behind a pulpit, but be behind a thumbnail on Clubhouse, or behind a screen on the Zoom, or in a reel, or fill in the blank, And if I can show that it's okay to be yourself, and I'm flawed, I'm not perfect. I've gained weight. I've lost weight. I've been consistent at working out. I've not been consistent at working out. I'm a Christian and I cuss a little. Like I am a total pendulum swing at times of human beings. And it feels sometimes like maybe we're being a chameleon and maybe we're shifting, but really maybe we're just tapping into the different facets of who we are, because we're multifaceted people. And really when you're putting on Mark the business cap, and then you're putting on Mark the marketing cap, and then you're putting on Mark the nice to old lady cap, or whatever the rooms are that you're referencing, you're not being not true to yourself. You're just tapping into a side that you don't always let be present, right? And so I used to think just like you. I'm very cynical, first off. I immediately assume this person's lying. I'm doing they're lying, like whatever. And like I said, 6 weeks into Clubhouse, I caught myself playing the role and not fully being me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Saying the things that was going to excite everybody, being in as many rooms as I could be, getting on stage. And if I wasn't getting pulled up on stage and getting moderated, getting butt hurt. And I remember really being upset about this one day. And then thinking to myself, who are you? Like, when have you ever cared if someone chose to put you on a stage or not? It's not even a real stage. This is so ridiculous. What are you here for? And I asked myself that question really tough. And actually, to this point, talking with friends, and you said, so my buddy Dan, who's Dan Mezaretsky, he's a big Clubhouse name as well. We get on the phone call and we talked about it. What's your intention? What's your intention? What do you want to do? And then we called each other out. Well, if you're telling me that your intention is to increase the vibration of love through Clubhouse and in turn increase the collective consciousness, then why are you parking on a room that has nothing to do with anything in that of your intention? Why are you aligning yourself with people who are big names that are utilizing predatory acts to get people to buy their monthly subscriptions and get more money, but really not giving them any value in what they're doing? Mm-hmm. And I realized, oh my gosh, I have influence. And by doing those things, I'm helping influence people in the wrong way. So I shifted. I only spend time in the rooms that I want to be in. I only go on the stages and support the people who I align with and I know what their intention is. And if I don't know someone's intention, I will reach out and find out. And it's very common for me to ask someone, hey, I'd love to know what's your intention on Clubhouse. And if it aligns with me, I will do everything I can to support that person. And if it doesn't align with me, I'm just going to realize, okay, sometimes we're going to be in room together and sometimes we're not. And I'm okay with that. And I just kind of go on. So as long as I check myself every single time I enter a room on Clubhouse, every single time I enter a space in real life, is this aligning with my intention, the legacy that I want to leave, and what's ultimately going to benefit my entire family for generations to come? And if the answer is no, I need to throw them deuces and leave quietly. I don't need to make a stink. I just need to get out of there. But if it does, then I'm sitting put and I'm adding more value than I ever can. Because I know that by me giving freely, the universe will take care of me and I don't have to worry about anything.
Could you tell that Alexander and I were just pretty much having fun by the end of that? I mean, we could have just talked all afternoon. Okay, 3 key takeaways from this talk. Number 1, bring your darkest moments from your past into the light. They will lose power over you. It's hard, it's scary, it's difficult, but ultimately, you do not need to be a victim of your past. Okay, number 2, this one scares the bejesus out of me. Your greatest fear should be living in unrealized potential. Whew, that's a big one, right? It's your job, it's your mission to make the most of your potential and to live up to your high hopes. Number 3, this is a big one. Surround yourself with people who are already at a level in their life that you're hoping to one day live. Not to focus on the differences or how far you are from them, but rather to see the similarities. And really take hope in knowing that with work, with time, you could also be at their level. Now, if you have something to prove to the doubters, to the haters, to that little voice of fear that screams at you from the back of your mind, if that's you, you've got to face the difficult, the scary, and the hard things in your life. It's not easy. It's never easy. But remember, we aren't just dreamers, we're doers. Because we do hard things. If you need to fix your life and get more shit done, you have got to hear how this woman, named one of the top 10 women changing the digital landscape for good, breaks it all down. Click on the video right over there to hear the real, inspiring conversation.